I am Georgette Watje. I am a queer barber in the Hilltop community of Tacoma. I own the Queer Barber Collective, as well as the Barber Collective, which is what we're sitting in right now. I am a wife and a dog mom of 2 amazing dogs. I live in Tacoma, and this is my story. I grew up in a very small town in Western Maryland called Hagerstown. And it was me, my dad, my brother's 10 years older than me. Played a lot of sports, was very active. A tomboy, which I'm sure is no surprise to anybody. Growing up, it was sports. Sports were my life, for sure. I liked being part of a team. It was not just about playing the sports for me. It was because my brother is 10 years older. I kind of felt like I never had siblings growing up, so my teammates were like my sisters, you know, well, and my brothers, I guess, when I played Little League. I met my wife in 13, 14, and she is a teacher. She was teaching in inner city Baltimore at the time. And so we met in Baltimore, and as we got more serious, she was exhausted from teaching in inner city Baltimore and was just getting really discouraged and kind of needed a break from it. And she was doing some work on the side, some contracting work, and this company decided to offer her a position and was like, you can go to LA or you can go to Denver. So we went to Denver. We were in Denver for a little over a year, and I was 35 at the time, and it was my first trip out to the PNW. She brought me out here for Christmas. Her dad lives in Bellingham, has for about 18 years. And so we went up to Bellingham, and we flew into Seattle, saw some friends. I got to meet some of her friends from out here. And then we went up to Bellingham and spent Christmas up there, and I just fell in love. When you grow up on a coast, it's really hard to be landlocked. So while I love Colorado and I have very many friends who are like family to me in Colorado, it wasn't home. It didn't feel like home. And, you know, so when I looked at her and said, you know, like, I don't understand why we don't live here, she was kind of like, don't mess with me, right? Like, I've always wanted to come back out here. She was actually, spent part of her childhood in Bellingham. She went to elementary school there. So we came back to Denver, went back to Denver. She got in contact with somebody who worked at Seattle District, and it was like that, and we were out here. I mean, it was like boom, boom. She got an interview, she got the job. We started out in Mount Lake Terrace area, and while we like Seattle, again, just wasn't home. And she wanted me to check out Tacoma. She was like, I just have this feeling about Tacoma. She would call it the Oakland of Seattle. You know, it's like everybody loves San Fran, but Oakland was kind of the, you know, like in the shadow. And that's how she felt about Tacoma. We found the house that's on the other side of this door and fell in love, and that was a little over 3 years ago. We bought this house in April of 2017. So Hilltop is where we knew we wanted to be. Coming from Baltimore, going to Denver, going to Seattle was kind of a shock for us. We went from, you know, being the minority to really not seeing a whole lot of diversity in either city. So Tacoma was huge for us to be here. That was a big part of it. So yeah, Tacoma is home. Like, when I say I go back to Maryland and visit, I slip up sometimes and say like I'm going home, but like this is home for sure. I'm drawn to the Hilltop neighborhood for many reasons. There's a lot of amazing small businesses in Hilltop that I really enjoy. Courthouse Square is one of my favorite buildings in Tacoma. And then I'd say anywhere along the water. Port cities are, for me, just, they're a gem. I'm pretty traditional. I like to call myself a classic barber. I studied here in Tacoma at Bates Technical College. Studied under Mr. Olson, who is, he's been a barber in this area for over 40 years. His dad owned a shop in Proctor, so he grew up in that, with hair just constantly changing and trends changing. Obviously, you have to you got to move with the times, and so I get to do some fun things here and there, but I would absolutely call myself a classic barber. I like doing classic cuts, on anybody. One of the things that I stand for is hair has no gender. So you'll never kind of hear me say, my favorite cut is a gentleman's cut, because you can do a gentleman's cut on anybody, and it's just a classic cut. So, so I'd say a classic barber for all is kind of my shtick. All barbers, all salon shops in Washington State were shut down on what I think, like I said, was March 17th. And at the time, I was working at a shop in Hilltop, and I don't know why, but I had a gut feeling that it wasn't just going to be, at the time, Governor Inslee had said, we're shutting it down for 2 weeks. And I just right away was like, this is going to be way longer than 2 weeks. There's no way. So I came home and had a discussion with my wife about kind of what it was going to look like, as far as, now I'm not going to be working. And when I'm not working, I'm not making money. I don't have paid time off as a barber. And so, she was like, okay, we'll figure this out. Let's sleep on it. So about 2 days later, I made the decision to leave the barbershop that I was with. Went in, just kind of gathered my stuff and pulled my chair out of there and brought it into this space. And at the time, this space was a junk room. I mean, it was a catch-all for any projects we were working on, bikes, kayaks, everything. And my wife looked at me and said, the garage, make the garage a shop. Look into it, see what happens. What it really came down to for me was, when we get the green light again, how am I gonna feel the safest? I've not done hardly any marketing outside of Instagram, Facebook, and word of mouth still, in this day and age is like the number one way of building your business, it turns out. And I'm beyond grateful for that. I went through a lot emotionally, building this out, sleepless nights wondering, am I crazy? Is this gonna work? And so far so good. So, like I said, if business were any better, I would think it was a fluke. Now's the time. I think that we're forced, again, to adapt to this, or, we either need to ride this wave, or it's gonna roll us over. And I could have went either way, for sure. I mean, there were days where I was on a high and feeling good about it, and there were days where I was like, nope, I'm just gonna shut the door and stop working on it and just kind of walk away, and I'll figure it out when we get the green light again. So if somebody if they're at a crossroads within themselves, I would say, choose the path of that scares you the most, because if it's going to work at any time, it's going to work now, because right now we're so forced to slow down and figure things out that I don't think we're going to get another opportunity like this. So I'm very involved with the Rainbow Center, Oasis Center, anybody and everybody there. This city is just, I've never lived in a city where the queer community, it's like everybody just is so ready to give back. I would love nothing more than to sit with a bunch of people, a bunch of friends, on the patio somewhere, drinking a beer, whether it be Narrows, or E9, or Odd Otter, or Wingman, just any of those little local places, and not have to worry about distance or, hugging people. I would just love nothing more than to be having a beer, see somebody I know, go over and be able to hug them, and then just be like, come sit with us. I am Georgette Watje. I am a queer barber in the Hilltop community of Tacoma. I own the Queer Barber Collective, as well as the Barber Collective, which is what we're sitting in right now. I am a wife and a dog mom of 2 amazing dogs. I live in Tacoma, and this is my story.